didn't want to work.
So I'll just test them out and so on. It does certain things. So I'm Barry Clearwater. In recent years, my main work has been aviation fuel at airports. So I have talked on that before. I'm not a forensic engineer. I'm a mechanical engineer though. I first came quite a long time ago, I think when it was Collingwood, and somebody was giving a talk on professional indemnity insurance, which in my area is quite important and it's quite expensive as well. So I've kept coming because I think it's good to have a drink and a meal, but eventually you have to pay your desserts and do the talk, I guess. So this is where I am.
Hear that, people? Eventually you've got to pay your duties.
Yes, so my talk is on aviation fuel filter, water separator, internal fires and explosions. Are they real? Are they apocryphal? So I guess in more detail, where am I heading with this? I start with the premise that all events in the end are statistical, even when viewed as deterministic. To develop a statistical basis, you need a quality database. Various industries prefer to make their data anonymous, both in site and in time, which in the end the data just becomes a legend and it does not enhance the lessons learned. Anonymous data over time progresses, and my view is it becomes apocryphal. It's rather like the woman who, after giving the poodle a bath, she dried it in the microwave and wondered why it exploded. Did that ever happen? But it is around there even prior to the internet. So the example I'm going to do is missed explosions at airport fuel farms, and in this case it's Miami International Airport, and how it appears there was not a root cause analysis, but at least we do know where it was and we do know the date. If an event is very infrequent, it may not need the additional safeguards that we make up because we assume that it will happen. Of course, simple things and cheaper things, you just do it. And now I have to roll the dice or the mouse. Again, it's just to repeat, I guess, it's a Chinese whispers process. I was told in the 1980s that there'd been an explosion many years previously at Esso, West London, where the filter water separator had just blown up. I've never found any report of this. It was just a comment in the corridor, and probably by somebody who didn't really know where it was. So, once upon a time, it's just a story. So, a quick review of what a filter water separator is. In the airport, the limit that the fuel can have water in it is 30 parts per million. So we have these filter water separators. In fact, there's probably very little water in there, but the tank is a breathing animal, and so it may, when the level lowers, it brings in humid air perhaps, and so you get condensation. So it goes through this device, and the fuel goes in through these little blue manifolds, up through those white filter water separator elements. So they do have dirt holding capacity, but their primary purpose is to coalesce the water from fine mist into, this is mist inside the fuel, not mist I'm about to talk about, into very fine droplets into larger droplets. So, and the flow in these is in-out. So it goes up the blue manifold, it's inside the element, and then the fuel makes its way out, all 360 degrees, and therein lies the problem. So the coalescing method is not part of this talk, but it's a sort of a surface energy situation where fine droplets of water move along fiberglass fibres and they become bigger, and they go out onto a cotton sock, and then they are finally big enough to fall down because there's gravity. There's a specific gravity difference between jet fuel, which is 0.8, and water, which is 1. So all I can say about that is I don't want to. If I look at my watch, it's not because I'm wondering when the next train is going. It's whether I've used how many of the 10 minutes I've used. So I can't tell you much more about the coalescing. But the problem is the primary elements, those are the coalescing elements we've been talking about. The vessel, they have to be replaced every now and then. They're a consumable, so the vessel has to be opened up, they're taken out, and the new ones are put in. Now, normally the filling process of that vessel is part of a standard operating procedure, and you have to vent it, make sure it's absolutely totally full. But sometimes, perhaps it doesn't happen. And so then you get this situation where you have air, you have liquid, and it will go up. The fuel will go up the interior of the cartridge, filled cartridge, and it will spray out a mist of basically kerosene into air, which has got some oxygen in it, and the flash point requirements don't hold anymore. The fuel can go on fire or explode because it's a containment that encourages exploding. This can happen even if you blow the flash point. The flash point is a laboratory test where you determine how much temperature you need in that particular product. If you introduce a flame above it, it will go on fire. So this is a special circumstance. Also, there's a possibility of static electricity, which is the ignition source. Because we've got fiberglass, we've got cotton, we've got all that sort of thing. It's like rubbing your plastic comb in you're producing, and that therein lies the spark. So, you can find, well, you can't actually. These are company photographs of elements that have been on fire. They look like this. But it's a fire. It's not too bad. It'll burn the interior of the lining of the vessel. It's not an explosion. So it didn't go bang in this place, presumably. Now I'm going to go to my example. And in fairness, it's not apocryphal. It really did happen. It's been documented only by the press, really. It happened on a certain day, 24th of March 2011, very close to midnight. That's what the airport looked like. This is not a super strong light. This is the fire. Here's Captain. The emergency fuel shut-off has failed. A fire in the area of the pump platform. The emergency shut-off should have closed the tank valves discharging to the pump platform. I'll come back to that later, if I've got time.
Keep going.
3 minutes.
3? Oh, that's plenty. That's enough. So the emergency fuel shut-offs failed. The fire encircled all the way along the North side. If the steel gets hot enough to melt, this is what the fire chief says, he's not quite right here in my view, those tanks full of fuel are going to buckle. Well, the buckling is correct. The steel softens, but it's still solid. But anyway, so that's... And they were running out of water, they were running out of resources. I think they needed foam mainly, and probably manpower. In our opinion, now, is for now for somebody to go into the fire, identify the open valve, and close it by hand. So here's Tom, and he's the manager of the fuels facility. He's going to go in immediately into the dike areas, that's US speak for bum, try and figure out what valve is open. You can see Tom's hand here. I think this is done afterwards. But there's no electric actuator on that valve. So no emergency system could have closed it. All of this is just some other valve they got. This is another valve in another part of the world. This is what the actuator looks like. And we didn't see it in the previous photograph. Anyway, Tom's been in there, he's closed every valve we can see. I finally start to see the fire is somewhat being diminished, which is great. And you know, I think this part of it did happen, and the man was extremely courageous, I would say. And then we see this pipe. I don't know whether it's part of the manifold, which you wouldn't have that many flanges, but this is what they look like. The pumps are sort of in between. I presume this is the discharge manifold, which seems a little bit bent, but these are the filter water separators. Now, I can't see any of this is the closure at the top, which is open to change the elements. I can't see any of them missing. This is what we call a spectacle pump, but all of them seem to be all right. So, did the vertical vessels, one of them start the fire? That just shows where the motor is. So that's about all we get. And so I'm not accused of plagiarism. This was one of those disaster. I'm just going to get on the. So the cause of the fuel farm fire is currently under investigation, which is great to know. I've never managed to find it, but the CBS News, which are a news outfit, so they're usually a little bit sensational, they asked around, and they have this I team, I guess it's investigation team, and I'm nearly at the end. Yeah, nearly. Possibly cause the seal to fail? Maybe. We've isolated it to a small area. We've isolated it to a filter, to a particular pump set BAS. I-team investigator Stephen Stock said a fuel filter. Yes, associated. The filter is associated with the pump set BAS. It was mechanical, yes. The chief pegged the fire as nothing more than an accident. A source in a position to know told CBS 4 I-team that the explosions and pressures blew off a heavy lid to filter number 2. It is a filter lid that is bolted down by half a dozen half-inch bolts. It will be many more bolts, and they'll be more than half an inch back. Let's not get finicky. The force to blow off such a lid in the event, the source said, happens only on rare occasions. And the filters are larger than a human being. Well, I would agree with that, they are. These events can happen according to several studies, when the jet fuel is introduced into the filters too quickly after maintenance has been conducted on them. The source told I-team that filter number 2 had apparently been cleared of jet fuel in order to conduct yearly maintenance on it the day before the explosion. That's why the airport authority is looking to hire a specialised engineering firm to give a formal report on the exact sequence of events that led to this near disaster. Perhaps the airport authority is still looking for this specialised engineering firm. Then there was a law case which the fuel management company, Allied Aviation, and its insurers sued the design, engineering, and construction companies that worked on the fuel storage system, claiming that the design flaw was the fact that the emergency stop cables got burned. But that's not the root cause, is it? Anyway, that's where we are. And their solution was they put all the pumps in these little houses. We can see here. I guess it does give some resiliency, but it still doesn't solve the problem. But maybe it's not a problem, it's just once in a blue moon. That's it.
No, it was actually a full moon, not a blue moon.